and welcome back to The Fast and the Curious, the show that takes you inside the wonderful world of Formula One. I'm Betty Glover. Usually I'm joined by our team principal, Greg James, and our resident F1 knowledgeable gnome, Christian Hugill. But Greg is on holiday and Christian is busy running around the Texas Grand Prix in a cowboy hat, as you do. So it is just me, you lucky people. Although I do also have a big Formula One name with me, because our rule on this podcast is that if an F1 driver or a Formula One is up for a chat, then we scramble and we make it happen. And we do also need to look ahead to the first race in what feels like eternity. So we are going to do that. But before we get into it, I do have to just remind you that we have had a pretty great run of guests in this crazy long break. We've had Will Buxton and Gunther Steiner. Both of them came into the studio. And this week we had Franco Colapinto make his Fast and the Curious debut. And also we caught up with our good old pal, Oscar Piastri. Or should we say, the Wizard of Oz, or the Wizard of Oz car, as his official nickname is, which we are going to make stick. So if you don't like it, I suggest you've just got to get on board, to be honest, because you don't have a choice. You can catch up with all of those on YouTube or your podcast feed. But before you do that, we have got a certain world champion ready to have a chat. Joining us direct and live from the Circuit of the Americas, Jenson Button. Welcome back to The Fast and the Curious. How are you doing? Are you okay?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm here in Austin and it's beautiful. It's nice. The weather's finally chilled a little bit, so it's quite fresh in the mornings. Very like the UK on a good summer's day.
Oh, okay. I like that. And I like that you've sorted your hair out, because before we started recording, you were in a bit of a mess, weren't you?
It's not great. It's early mornings here. I haven't done it yet. But no, I feel good. So thank you for commenting on the hair. Yours looks good too.
Thanks, Jenson. You were on our very first episode of this podcast, by the way. Why has it taken you so long to come back?
Why have you not asked me to come back?
I've asked you many a time.
I think I should be in the credits if I was in the first one.
Yeah, your furniture, basically.
Exactly, yeah. It's good to be back. It's good to see you guys have grown a lot.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I wasn't sure if it was going to work. I wasn't sure. You guys don't really know that much about motor racing. But no, it's good. It's good to see how it's grown. And fair play to you guys. Good job.
Thanks, Jenson. Let's talk about the Texas Grand Prix then. Let's get into it, because I know you don't have a huge amount of time. How is it out there in Texas? Other than the weather, what's the vibe like? Because it's been a long time without racing.
Yeah, I mean it's great. I think everyone's excited. There's a lot of teams have upgrades here, so it's a little bit unknown of who's going to be right at the front. I think we can kind of guess, but it's kind of a four-way fight, I would say, here with teams. With McLaren, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, I think they're all going to be pretty competitive. So it's a little bit up in the air, I'm looking forward to seeing what's happening at the front, but also looking to see where we are in terms of Williams here. Two drivers that have put on such a great show and performed so well over the last few races. Coming to a track like this, I hope that we can be competitive and they can score some good points.
We can hear the cars. Where are you?
I am in the hospitality unit at Williams.
Oh my God.
So yeah, the old F1 cars have just gone out on track. So got some big old V8 engines revving in V10s, I think, at the moment.
Oh, I love it. It's so loud. Let's talk about the circuit, because you've driven around this circuit countless times, obviously in F1, but NASCAR and endurance championships as well, the World Endurance Championships. What do you love about it?
It's kind of a new track. Well, it's not that new anymore, is it? But it feels like a really old school track. It's fast, it's flowing. Turn 2 to turn 9 is just massively fast, especially in a Formula One car. The change of direction, you're really feeling an F1 car at its best. And I think for the fans stood in that area around the track, you really see an F1 car at its best. So you have that section, then you have the high-speed stuff, the long straights, heavy braking corners, and the last sector, which is, again, fast and flowing. So it really does have a bit of everything. It is a good racetrack as well. So I look forward to a good fight out on track this weekend.
Yeah, 100%. Now, you mentioned the Williams drivers earlier. I want to talk to you about one of them who doesn't have quite as much experience as you at this track, and it is obviously Franco Colapinto, who's going to be racing his first Grand Prix there this weekend. He's doing all right, isn't he?
He is. He's very good at finding the limit. he when you look at his driving style, he does push very hard, but he's very good at getting to the limit and stopping there and keeping it on track. But no, it's very impressive how he gets up to speed. He has very little experience in this car, and a lot of the tracks that we're going to. But to put on a performance like he did in Singapore on a very, very difficult track with very limited time on track, it shows his talent. And yeah, and also to push Alex. We all know how good Alex is, Alex Albon. And for Franco to get in the car and push him as hard as he has, yeah, it's really impressive. So fair play to him, and it's great to see both drivers scoring points. It's a big, big positive for the team, and they're still chasing points in the constructors' championship. So, but even so, where they are right now is good.
Yeah, it's so nice to see Franco come in and be so good. Like barely anyone was expecting him to sort of be this good, were they? As you're a Williams sort of brand ambassador, have you given him any advice? Has he asked you any questions or anything?
No, first of all, no. But I think at this point for him, it's kind of nice. I think jumping in mid-season. I think if you arrive as a Williams driver, you sign a contract, you are one of two drivers and one of 20 drivers on the grid to race a full season in the sport. There's a lot more pressure that's on your shoulders, and we see it time and time again with drivers. They're put in that position with a lot of inexperience of what Formula One is about. It's not just about the driving, that's such a small part. It's about the PR, the working with the sponsors, the pressures that come with being an F1 driver. Your world changes when you become an F1 driver. Before that, you're just a racing driver, and then suddenly you're a Formula One driver. So I think coming in mid-season, there's less pressure on your shoulders, and you can really get to grips with what the sport is all about. And then when you finally go into your full season as a driver, you have that confidence in yourself and understanding of this sport, because it's the mental aspect that really gets you as a racing driver. And we've seen it time and time again. So I like the way he's given this opportunity this year, and it's going to set him up well for the future in F1.
Well, what do you see his future in F1 being?
Well, next year, it's always difficult for a driver to do a few races in F1 and also to be so competitive and then be kind of on the sidelines as a third driver for the next year. It's difficult, but I think every driver understands there's only 20 places on the grid. But I see him racing for many years to come. If he is a third driver next year, he's going to get a lot of experience of working with talented drivers in Carlos Sainz and Alex, who have so much experience. Drivers that have worked with every team in the pit lane, really. Carlos arrives with experience of Ferrari and also McLaren, and obviously Alex working with Red Bull. So they have so much experience of working with different teams and how those different teams go about their racing philosophy. So I think he's going to learn a lot. He's going to take away a lot from this year. There's still many races left, but I look forward to seeing how he progresses from such a great start.
His sort of start to life in Formula One is quite similar to yours in a way, because you obviously made the jump from F3 to F1, didn't you? And you made your debut with Williams in 2000 when you were 20, just 20
Yes.
years old.
Yeah.
You said you weren't sort of ready to start in F1, and you got that call from Frank Williams and you thought it was a bit of a joke. Can you remind us what that moment was like?
Well, to test the car was fine because I'd already driven a Prost, I'd already driven a McLaren at 19, but I didn't have any idea what it was. Am I going to go and test this car to be a third driver, to be a test driver? I didn't know, and no one told me. So I basically went through the testing, and we had so many engine failures that I really didn't get to drive the car much. And then it came to the last day of testing, and it felt weird. I was like, this isn't for a third driver role, is it? This is actually for the race seat. And the PR man, Nav Sidhu, who I knew pretty well, was like, yeah, it's for the race seat. So suddenly put a bit of pressure on my shoulders. But the test went well, and I was quicker than the guy I was up against. But still, it wasn't announced until the actual official announcement day. Where they're launching the car, they're launching the drivers. That's when they told me. It was half an hour before that they announced it to the world that I was an F1 driver. Frank called me in his office and said, Jenson, just so you know, we've decided to go with you. you're going to be racing for Williams alongside Ralf Schumacher.
Oh my God.
And I was just like, what? And immediately after that, said, thank you, Frank, and walked out of his office and saw my dad and gave him the biggest hug. And yeah, it's that moment in time you'll never forget as a racing driver. As I said, you go from being a racing driver to a Formula One driver, and your world changes. It's a very special moment in time.
And you only had half an hour before the announcement to everyone to sort of get your head around that as well.
Oh, yeah. So previous to that, we did all the driver photos,
Crazy.
the team photos of Ralf Schumacher and me with the car, Ralf Schumacher with Bruno Junqueira and the car. So we did everything.
Oh my God.
As, because Frank hadn't decided yet who was going to be the other driver in the team. So it was a tough one because Bruno came out of Frank's office before I went in and he was smiling and he didn't say anything. And I had no understanding what the situation was. Anyway, when I got the drive, immediately I was put on stage in front of the world's media as an F1 driver. And yeah, I mean, if you can find the video, I'm sure you can, you'll see how gobsmacked I am and how I have no understanding of how to act.
Yeah, you must have been like, what on earth is happening? This is ridiculous. So can you relate a little bit to Franco then in sort of his situation?
A little bit. I think they're more prepared, and that's the whole thing, with being coming up through the ranks, and these young driver programs work really well because they're prepared. They're put in those situations. They have the right training, the right nutritionists. They have... They work with the sponsors before they get to F1, so they're kind of prepared a bit better in that sense. In terms of driving the car, they're less prepared because there's no testing in F1, really. It's all simulator work. So you're prepared in a very different way. I think they're more prepared for outside of the car now, but less prepared for inside of the car.
What's better? What would you rather be more prepared for?
I think it's definitely evolved over the years, and I think it's better now. And they understand what is needed. Most of these drivers have so much talent in the car that it's preparing them for everything else that is important. They get in the car, they're quick, and it works. So it's preparing them for everything that happens when they get out of the car. So they're definitely in the right place with how they do it now.
Let's talk about the rest of this season then, because it's so exciting. Are you as excited as we are? Because I honestly, I can't wait for the next 6 races.
Yeah, it's funny because when I remember watching the preseason testing in Bahrain and every time Max got in the Red Bull, it was like...
Here we go again.
Exactly, here we go again. And it kind of was for a few races. But what a turnaround. And you don't see this sort of turnaround in F1 from... 3 different teams have suddenly taken it to Red Bull this year. And so far into a regulation change, it's surprising to see that improvement from those teams. So it's awesome. And, you've got 8 cars out there fighting for the podium. I really do think that on some tracks, the Red Bull is the 4th best car at the moment. So it's so exciting because, if Max finishes second every race, obviously Lando hasn't got a chance of winning the championship, but it's very unlikely he's going to finish second every race. If those 3 other teams can get it together on a race weekend, Max is going to be finishing sort of 6th, 7th. So yeah, it's really exciting. And, every race we do is like, is he going to hold on? Is Lando going to take it? So it's great. And I think the sport is in such a great place at the moment with the following the sport has, but also we can back it up with the action that's happening on track.
Yeah, definitely. You've been in Max's position of sort of being chased down and having to hold on to win a title before. What will be going through his head?
I think it's a little different for him. With the pressure that I had, I struggled. It was my first opportunity to fight for a world championship, and I didn't know if it was going to be my last, and it was my last. So you put so much pressure on your shoulders. Whereas for Max, he's won multiple world championships. It's a little different. He understands he's not going to win another race this year, and I think he's already got that into his head. But still, knowing there's so many teams and drivers that could take points off of you, it's a high-stress situation. It's not just for Max. It's also for the team, the strategists, for the pit crew. One tiny mistake could mean everything in this championship. So it's a tough situation. And I think it's a little different for Max as well. They do have a team that has the funds to develop a car, whereas we didn't back in 2009. But yeah, it's made a super exciting season. I cannot wait for the rest of the year.
Jensen, when we did Williams' car launch in New York together, we were sat there and you were talking to me about how country music was going to be like the next big thing. Everyone loves it. And I was like, Jensen, what are you talking about? No one listens to country music. And then literally like 2 months later, Beyonce released this country album. Everyone's buzzing over country music. So now I will literally listen to whatever you say.
Great.
So who do you think? Who do you think is going to win? Do you think it's going to be Lando? Do you think it's going to be Max?
First of all, you got to check out Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll. What's that?
He's a country star. He's a jelly roll. Check him out.
Okay.
But who's going to win the championship?
Yeah, the drivers'
I mean,
championship.
I don't want to say who I think because it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
The important thing is that we get an exciting end to the season. And I want Alex Albon to win the World Championship, but he's not going to this year.
One day.
Exactly, one day. But I am just excited for the rest of this year and seeing the fight. I'm going to take every race as it is and enjoy the action. And I think we're going to have a good one here in Kota.
Can you do a prediction for this weekend's podium?
I have no idea. I'm going to just throw it out there. I think I think it depends on team orders.
Oh.
If we don't have team orders, maybe Oscar. I think Oscar could win here.
Okay.
From Lewis, from Lando. There you go. Thank you, guys. I'm going to have to go.
Bye, Jensen. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you.
Laters.
Interesting prediction there from Jensen. Off he goes. Sounded like we were literally talking to him as he was sat in the middle of the track. I couldn't really hear what he was saying. But anyway, lovely to have Jensen on. Thank you so much to him. But before we go, and let me listen to Jelly Roll or Jelly Cat or whatever it is, it is time for a reminder that NordVPN is an absolute must for any Formula One fan or knowledgeable hot pot, if that is what you are, heading to any of the races for the rest of the season. We all use it at the Fast and the Curious, as you all know, because we don't stop banging on about it. And we all change our virtual locations to keep up to date with all of our TV and radio when we're away from home, covering races or working at big sporting events. You can also use NordVPN to help you save money when you're planning your next trip to a Grand Prix, because some flights and hotel fees change, you know, guys, depending on where you book them from. So it's a really handy tool. Change your location when you're sorting out all of your logistics to help you spend less money, which is always a good thing. It's also super safe because NordVPN protects your data when you're using public Wi-Fi wherever you are in this world, including Austin, Mexico, Brazil, or anywhere else Formula One happens to be for the rest of the season. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN, so I'm going to start that again, guys. So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/TFATC. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. And there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the description of this episode. I'm going to go and listen to Jelly Man. What's his name? I've forgotten. Jelly Roll. I'm going to go listen to Jelly Roll. But after the Grand Prix, I will be back with a big debrief with Christian Hugill, who will probably be wearing a cowboy hat. And I bet you £10 that he will definitely mention it. Thank you and goodbye.